Recording in progress. So, Sean Conway, welcome to the Rockman podcast. How are we doing?
Thank you for having me, mate. Yeah, I'm good. I did just been running around Wales today. Did 2,500 meters of climbing in 28k or something. Is crazy. I'm dying.
28k. Where the hell were you going?
So I did Llanberis up the slate mines. So from Llanberis, you sort of head north, I guess.
Is that the vertical kilometer?
It could be, yeah, it could be that bit there.
I've almost been killed off doing that before as well.
Yeah, and then up along the ridge all the way to Trefan, and then from Trefan down to the not quite to the car park, just to that I can't remember, Llyn Ogwyn or something, the tarn there, and then back up and over and down back to Llanberis. So
and this was a training run.
No, well, yeah, it's just a bit of fun. It was part of the Paddy Buckley round. So me and my cousin, who, I mean, I don't think we can ever manage the Paddy Buckley, to be honest, but we enjoy going and doing some of the legs. So last week we did sort of Capel Curig and around there, only 20k, and then today was sort of 28k. But yeah,
and that's
Paddy
what you do for
Buckley's
fun.
hard. Yeah,
I bet it is
hard. It's like, it's underrated because there's so many bits that are like, you're almost climbing, you're on hands and feet, and we did very little running actually, because you can't, it was a bit slippery as well, to be honest, but icy. Well, yeah. So yeah, it was a tough day, if I'm honest.
Yeah, I bet. Well, for people that don't know, because obviously we haven't introduced you yet, so you are Sean Conway.
I am still, I think.
Zimbabwe born.
Yeah.
Now, UK resident, I'd imagine. You've been here for a while.
Yeah, I live in Wales.
Now you're Welsh, which is even better.
Yeah, my wife is fully Welsh, so I'm an honorary Welshman, if they'll have me. Yeah, I mean, it's. I was born in Zimbabwe. I grew up in South Africa. I moved to the UK when I was 20 years old because my family was from here and Ireland. Mm-hmm. So dad's side's Irish, mum's side's English. And then, yeah, just I've been here 20 odd years now, and met my wife, got a couple of kids, live in a bungalow in Wales, living the dream, man.
Well, like for people that don't know, in 1 minute or less, because from what I see, you've had a life of two halves. You had up until you were 30, doing your business. And then after 30, you turned into, some incredible endurance challenge beast. So for people that don't know, maybe in 1 minute or less, could you sort of condense it down to who you are and what you've been through since the age of 30?
Well, I since the age of 30 until now, I get classed as an adventurer, but I sort of cringe at that. I kind of sort of feel, I don't really know what that feels, a bit wanky, So I'm technically a non-professional ultra endurance athlete. So I try and break world records in the world of sort of super ultra endurance. So, like cycling around the world, cycling across Europe, world's longest triathlon, things like that. And that's just, gives me a kick up the arse to sort of make the most of myself. Because before that, I used to be a grumpy school portrait photographer, which I wasn't very fulfilling for me. So that's what I do now. I just try and break records, and sometimes I break them, sometimes I don't. It's just the world of sport,
Do you know what? When I was doing my research, I was looking through your website, and I was like, right, what challenges has Sean done? And I saw a couple of the big ones at the top. And I was like, oh, they're brilliant. I think it was 15 marathons in 15 national parks in the UK within 15 days.
Yeah.
There was from what you understand, the world's first sort of triathlon of John O'Groats to Land's End.
Yeah, Land's End John O'Groats triathlon, which no one's ever done still, unless Ross Edgley is the only other person who could do it because he's done the swim.
Yeah.
But yeah, very, very few people even do Land's End to John O'Groats cycling and running. It's quite a small crew. crowd of people, and I'm the only one in the Le Jog Triathlon Club at the moment.
Getting
So
pretty.
please, can someone, Ross, please cycle and run it so you can be in my club with me. I'm getting lonely.
You're calling him out now. Well, Reece Jenkins, Rockman athlete, he recently ran from.
Yeah,
He did
3 Peaks.
joggle, yeah, with the
Joggle,
3 peaks. So he's
yeah.
got 2
It's
left.
epic.
Maybe he can step up to the plate and give you a
Well,
run for your
it's
money.
swim, you know, the swim's the one that turns everyone off because it's pretty miserable. So
Yeah, gee, that looks miserable. But
yeah.
what surprised me, or didn't surprise me, I was like, I kept scrolling through the list of challenges, and I kept scrolling and scrolling, and it seems like it's never ending. I was like, this is too many. I can't look at all these. Like, so
Cheese rolling is probably my favorite though.
I did see cheese rolling on there. How do these challenges come about? How often are you doing them?
That's changed. So when I sort of quit the photography in 2011, really, I then decided to try and break the world record for cycling around the world. So that was 2013.
As you do.
Sorry, 2012, the round the world cycle. Then 2013 was the swim when I swam Land's End to John O'Groats. 2015 was the run. 2016 I did the world's longest triathlon. 2017 I had a crack at the across Europe cycling world record, and then I failed. So in 2018 I went back and did that. So for the first sort of, I was training for around the world in 2011. So it was a good 7-year period where I was just doing something big every year, and I sort of, part of me regrets doing them all too quickly because, I ticked so many life goals, and I had this big crazy goal of getting the 3 Fs of endurance, the world's first, furthest, and fastest. And I genuinely thought that'd be a lifelong dream. I thought, well, I'll eventually get all 3 by the time I'm 60, and that's great. But I got them all by the time I was 38, and I'm like, so and then I'm sort of like sat on my laurels going, oh, now what? I mean, luckily it coincided perfectly with getting married and having some kids and all that. And then COVID came along, so that sort of messed everyone's life up for the last couple of years. So anyway, yeah, so I was doing sort of a real big thing once a year, and then loads of little things like the 3 Peak Cycle Challenge and, kayaking the length of the Thames, all these little fun things, cycling to the Alps in between. Whereas now I'm sort of planning a big thing every couple of years, and still doing the small stuff like, the national parks marathons and the 496 challenge, and running across Iceland, all little short fun ones like that, So yeah, so that's the list really. It's 10 years now. Well, on the 18th of February, so not far away, is the 10-year anniversary for me departing for the round the world bike ride back in 2012. So yeah,
And
that's
that was
going
the
to
first
be.
one, was it?
That was
the first
well. That was the first one after I quit the photography. So while I was still a photographer, towards the end of my photography career, there's probably a 2-year period where I probably should have quit the photography game, but just, the Irishman in me was just like, you've just got to stick it out, man. No matter how bad it is, it'll get better. It doesn't get better unless you actively choose to change, processes in your daily life, which I didn't. So I did the cheese rolling, which is a bit of fun. I climbed Kilimanjaro dressed as a penguin. So I did that while I was in photography. I went and traveled around and trekked in Nepal for a bit. And these were sort of photography. In the photography game, your sort of January, February, March is always pretty quiet. So I used to take a month off and just go and, do some fun things that I could afford. And the one year, the biggest thing I did was I did Land's End to John O'Groats bike ride in 2008. So a couple of years before I quit the photography. But super, like, really slow. I mean, I tried to do it fast, but I was just so unfit. It took me 25 days. So, it was really nowhere near a world record attempt, even though at the time I'd heard about Gethin Butler, who had the record of 44 hours. And I was like, I wonder how close I can get to 44 hours. It's now 41 hours, I think.
How is that even physically possible?
You need tailwind, basically.
Yeah.
You got to really, it's doable with, but if you have one, if you have 5 or 6 bad hours with a headwind, it's gone really. That record, you're really in the mercy of the tailwinds on that one. But yeah, so I sort of thought, wow, I wonder how close I can get to 2 days. 25 days later.
Yeah.
So I mean, I probably should have, most normal people would have probably given up, but I have a very short memory and a low IQ, so I was like, that doesn't matter, I'll just train harder next time.
So what made you quit your job then? What was it? Describe what you were, where were you in that point of your life, and what were you feeling for you to go, do you know what, this isn't for me, I need a change?
Yeah, I mean, it was a slow boil. If you boil a frog from cold water, it eventually dies, whereas if you put a frog in hot water, it'll jump out.
Yeah.
I felt like the boiling frog, where I'd set up this company with a friend of mine, James Carnegie. And the original plan was, well, we can earn enough money from photographing nursery school kids. So, I mean, I don't know who's listening to this around the world, but in the UK, we have once a year, a photographer comes into your school, takes pictures of you, and your parents buy them. Now, I was doing that for nursery, so kindergarten, play school, so 0 to 5 years old or 4 years old. And, it turns out parents buy crap pictures of their kids, and we made a killing. So the original goal was, I wanted to be this amazing National Geographic photographer, but I'm not going to get those commissions at the age of 22, 23. So I needed to earn some money. And I had 2 options. I could go and work, because I have no A levels and I didn't go to university. I could go and work in a photo lab, which I did, or, in Starbucks or something that's where it doesn't require me having any sort of education. And then try and get the fun jobs on the side. Or I could still be in photography, doing photography jobs I don't enjoy, that pay well, and then would give me free time to do the other stuff. But the problem is the nurseries paid so well. What we started doing, James and I, is sort of turning down the creative work because we knew the nurseries would pay more.
Right.
And I mean, it was a terrible decision, but it was hard not to make that decision because we've got lots of like friends. A lot of these schools became our friends, and they say, oh, would you mind coming back and photographing us again? And it was just sort of hard to go, well, no, we don't want to, because actually we want it, it's pretty boring, sorry. So that's kind of what it was. It was just bad decision making. And then I turned 30, realizing that nothing was challenging me, and all I was doing is well, actually, by then I wasn't even photographing the kids anymore. I was just managing this company with James. We had 7 staff, photographers and Photoshop people in the office, and the salespeople, and we were based in the Midlands, London, and the Channel Islands. So it was a big operation, and all I spent my days was just kind of dealing with reprint orders and bent photos that arrived in the post, and parents complaining we'd made their kid look ginger. It's just like genuinely, that was quite a common complaint. And yeah, nothing was challenging me really. And I was lucky. I didn't have a girlfriend, I didn't have kids, I didn't have a mortgage, so I was able to just go, there's something in the world that I feel will fulfill me, and something that will give me a reason to get out of bed every day. And photographing crying babies wasn't it. So yeah, just packed it in really at 30.
And what did you go into then? What was your first? So you've packed in your job, and in fact, there's a funny story. Didn't you sell it for £1?
Yeah, sold it for £1 and then spent £4 on the frame to frame the pound. So yeah, it's So where I was in my head is I wanted to go traveling. So I sort of, because I dreamt about sort of traveling the world and being this amazing travel photographer, but I didn't really have any money to go traveling, like to do a proper big epic, like cycle around the world. Like I just didn't have the cash. And I'm 30 years old with no A levels and no CV. All I was a photographer from when I was a teenager, and I packed it in. I mean, I wouldn't employ me. So I was living in London. So there's no sort of low paid job where you could save enough money living in London. Like, it was really difficult because rent's expensive, just everything's expensive. So even if I'd gone and, started to work at a photo lab or or Starbucks or whatever, I just wouldn't have saved enough money to go cycling around the world. So I needed to come up with a plan. So, and I hadn't thought of cycling around the world yet. I'd thought, right, I want to go traveling, but I need to find some money to go traveling. So I thought, well, what if I try and break some sort of record in the world of travel? That was it. That was my thought process. Maybe there's a world record out there that has a certain element of traveling in it, which will allow me to see the world and take amazing photos and meet people. And then maybe I'll get sponsorship. That was literally it. Maybe someone else will pay for my travels under this sort of pretense that I'm going for a world record.
Yeah.
And then what happened is I thought of this round the world record, which the guy called Vin Cox had, and he also was going to put on a race in 2012. It's going to be the first ever round the world bike race. And I thought, well, I'll enter that, because if I'm part of a race, that's even more reason for a sponsor to come and, pay for my flights and whatnot. So I started training really hard, managed to get sponsorship for, someone covered my flights around the world and visas and whatnot. And I then realized, actually, I wasn't that interested in the travel bit anymore. I realized that actually I was really enjoying the physical challenge of it. So in the world of adventure, you've sort of got exploration and travel on the one side, and then you've got sort of sports and endurance. It doesn't have to be endurance, but there's sort of an athleticism side to adventure. And I was definitely enjoying that side of it. I'm not a very good traveler. I'm sort of not very good at going on holiday, whereas I really enjoyed the training. I really enjoyed just pushing myself physically and just seeing where I could get. I got a massive kick out of it. It got me out of bed every day. And that was kind of where it started, really, back in, it was 2011 when I was training, and I got the funding to cycle around the world. And that's kind of started this sort of weird career life thing that I've
and it's certainly kicked off. But it's so true. I think so many people get caught in sort of that I call it a rat race, I guess, of an unfulfilling 9 to 5 grind, waking up, doing your work, going to bed. And if you're not careful, the years can catch up with you. Before you know it, you're lucky you caught it at 30. Some people don't even catch it ever. You know what I mean?
Yeah, absolutely. But I feel like, I'm not one of these sort of like, just quit your job, and because I don't think that would fix a lot of people's sort of problems. If they're not enjoying their job, you really got to sit back and go, because if you quit your job and you've not got steady income, and as unromantic as it sounds, we need to buy food, we need to put shelter over our heads, we need to send our kids to nursery school, which is blooming expensive.
Yeah, tell me about it.
So there's all these responsibilities which this capitalist world has created for us. Call it what you will. However, it does give people drive sometimes. As soon as I became a dad, I'm like, right, now I need to go out and actually, earn some money to pay for nursery and things like, and swimming lessons and whatnot. My kids are young, very young. But actually, that's been quite good for me, because I was quite used to just living this sort of bum life. I lived on a boat for ages and I loved it. But actually, it was probably, for me, it didn't feel right. I was lucky enough that I lived out in the bush in Africa, and just had this amazing upbringing, and I'd like to give my kids the same. And yes, you don't need money to give your kids a good life, absolutely not. However, just quitting your job and trying to live a life without money can prove to be sort of more stressful and probably give you more depression than sort of in your job that you kind of mediocrely didn't quite enjoy. Which is why I actually, and Al Humphreys is a big fan of this, of course, and he coined the micro adventure. sometimes it's better just to keep your 9 to 5. And yes, it might not be super fulfilling, but what can you find fulfilling outside of that? Because also another thing, which is why I'm not a big fan of just quitting your job and doing something. Sometimes having something you love, if you then have to make money out of it, can ruin the thing you love.
Mm-hmm.
Now, for me, I'm lucky. It's good. I love what I do, and I manage to sell books, and people like to read them, and that's great. But for example, I'm also into knife making, but I couldn't think of anything worse than making that a business. I genuinely, and there's amazing knife makers all over the internet and making these beautiful 500-pound chef knives. And I love the art of it, but I would hate to sort of all of a sudden quit my job and decide to make money out of knife making, because I think that would ruin my enjoyment of knife making at the moment.
Mm-hmm.
So you've just got to be honest with yourself. So yeah, what I'm trying to say is yeah, if you hate your job, yes, you probably should quit it and find something else you like. And yes, you definitely don't need as much money as you think you can to lead a good life. But you really got to be honest with yourself. If you're used to going away on holiday and taking your kids, abroad and this sort of thing, maybe you don't do that, and maybe that's a good thing. But you've just got to be honest with where you're going to focus your energies on, because we all need to do something, and work often just gives us that thing to do in life. And if it's not enough, then maybe add other things. That's why people do ultras and do silly challenges, because it gives them something exciting to do outside of work. And work is good. It's there. It's stable. It gives me money. I don't have to stress about buying food and going hungry. But I've got this other thing, because you work from 9 to 5, you got from 5 to 9, or you should divide your life into 3 sets of 8 hours work, 8 hours sleep, 8 hours play. So there's a lot of time to do other stuff. So yeah, it's just what suits you. But you just got to be honest with yourself. And
So do you know what I see so many sort of entrepreneurial videos online on YouTube. You probably see them yourself, and it's all about, you should just quit. They do say, quit your job, chase your dreams. And that is the worst advice you could give anyone in the world. I think you have to have an exit plan. It's
Absolutely.
almost like, so if you spot this thing that you want to chase, this dream, you have to think about it methodically and replace, as you're saying. But money is a resource that we need to put roof over our head, food in our mouths. So I get it. Don't just quit and hit the road on your bike. Think about it methodically. But there was one thing you were talking about then. So you've just recently become a father for the second time, right?
Yes. Yeah. Sebastian is 3 months old now. So
and how old's your eldest?
2.5. So we're still in the early days.
You know what? I'm bang on with you pretty much. Really? I've got a 2.5-year-old and a 7-month-year-old. So not just a couple of months ahead.
Yeah.
So I'm feeling your pain, right? I know the pain. When you said, because we proposed a time a bit earlier, didn't we? So I was sorry, that's bedtime. And I was like, yeah, I know exactly what you mean. Because 20 minutes before we had our podcast, I've got my little one next door. She was screaming the house down. And I was like, oh my God, I hope she goes to sleep. How have you coped with fatherhood and adding it into the mix of these challenges? And how do you balance the two, training and fatherhood?
Yeah, well, I mean, so Monty is 2.5. He was 6 months old when COVID came. So he's pretty much been a COVID baby his whole life. So I've actually only been a dad for 6 months before COVID. And it was great. I was enjoying it. And then COVID came. So I kind of, I'm very thankful and lucky that I haven't been affected by COVID. So I was just able to, be at home and be a dad. So it's hard to answer that question because I've not lived as a dad in normal times, as it were. How it's changed my attitude to adventure things. I'm really less inclined to do anything that has a risk of death in it. So, mountaineering, I've just sort of put a line under. I was never really into it anyway, but part of me was like, would you like to climb big mountains one day? And loads of my friends do it. But the dangerous stuff, I've just said no. I was getting into paragliding, for example, and yeah, I know paragliding can be very safe, but the reward at the end is just no. And even the ultra endurance cycling, I sort of really decided I'd done enough cycling, and I felt I'd had a few. I'd been run over once before, but I was starting to get a few close shaves, and I just thought, you know what, doing the long 40 hours on public roads trying to win these big races, and I just that would have been the next step for me, and I'm not sure it was worth it when I became a dad. So that I've decided to tone down. However, I've decided to up my game on some other challenges that are just difficult, just
Yeah.
really difficult. And I've got a few in the pipeline, but COVID is still hanging about. So I'm just waiting till I sort of can see a light at the end of the tunnel, and then I'm going to go for them. But they're huge. They're bigger than anything I've ever done.
Yeah.
And I'm trying to train for one now, prepping for one at the moment. So today's run was part of that training. But yeah, they're big.
So
And the
no
reason,
exclusives for Rockman here?
no, unfortunately not. Sorry. Only because I don't want anyone else to sort of do them.
Yeah, right, yeah, true.
It's a competitive, I'm still a sportsman. There's still I still have people who I'm up against.
Yeah.
Yeah. And the reason is I sort of am now even more determined to do these really difficult challenges, so that my kids can just sort of one day go like, whoa, dad, and I'm hoping it just sort of sets them up with a mental capacity that's higher than I had when I was a kid. And it's not because my dad and my mum didn't do amazing stuff. They did amazing stuff. But it's sort of, they just kind of kept it to themselves. I'm like, you should have written the book, man. I only found out about all the cool stuff my parents did when I was in my 30s, because they just, there was social media and they didn't write stuff down. And same with my grandparents. My grandparents led these amazing lives. And I wish they'd been written these things down. They're just too humble,
Yeah, modest.
So, and I just want to do stuff and write my books so that one day my future grandkids can hopefully take something away from it. And because I really are just a big believer in doing things where there's a huge sort of uncertainty on the outcome. I'm a big fan of that. And it could be physical, it could be learning an instrument, it could be starting a business like what you're doing. Like if you're uncertain about the outcome, it just kind of gives you that buzz, because unfortunately we don't have any lions to chase us anymore. So we got to create these things, right? And it is a privilege that we're in a position that we have to do these silly things to get a buzz out of life when there's so many people who are struggling. But that's the life we were given. So we've got to make the most of it somehow, and hopefully that will extend and we kind of help other people as well, metaphorically, type thing.
Have you ever thought sort of deeply about why you do it and what you get from it? So I know you were saying it's you want to be this shining example to your children and inspiration, which is very honourable. But what do you get it? Do you get any sort of self-fulfillment from it, proving yourself that you can do these things?
In the early days, it very much was a sort of gorilla beating my chest type thing. It was sort of like, look at me, I'm the fastest and the first, and I've done the furthest this and whatnot. And now it's less about the ego side for me, because I feel I've proved to myself that I can do way more than I thought I could. And I know that sounds cheesy and cliche. And now it's got to a stage where I'm just looking for stuff that I think I can't do, and it's really difficult. Or trying to raise awareness for something, for example, like the national parks marathons. And that gives me a kick, gives me a real kick. And, the other reason is, I think I'm quite good at it, and it's nice to be in a place where you sort of do something that you're good at. And that gives me a huge sense of fulfillment in life, doing something that I know I'm good at, because I don't know what else I would do, really. I mean, I write books. I've written 7 books, and lots of people buy them, and that's great. And I'd love to write more, and that's probably what I'll end up doing later down the line, more full time, I think. But if I didn't have the sports side of things, I think I'd just get quite frustrated. I think I just need that sort of that outlet for me to focus my energies on. And if it has a bit of a physical element to it, all the more better. But it doesn't always have to be physical. As I say, I'm into all my hobbies. I like fixing old cars as well. So I've always got a classic car in the garage that I'm tinkering with. At the moment, it's a 1960s split screen VW camper van.
I saw on your Instagram earlier.
Yeah, so it's lovely. So that's what I just need stuff to focus my energy on. But the sport thing is the one that sort of I feel the most proud of. And it is my job, which is the unromantic side, but it's the only way I'm able to put food on the table for my family. So
yeah,
I'll keep doing it as long as I can.
Well, I mean, a lot of people talk about a why, don't they? Everyone's got to have a why. When you get pushed into those deep waters, and it's you're really under the cosh. It's the why you're doing it that sort of you can bring up for energy and activation and energy to push through these walls that we're faced with. What's your why? Do you have have you consciously thought about why, or is there an example when you were in a particularly low moment, and sort of what did you call upon to get you through that moment?
I don't really call upon anything, because quitting, there's no real, it's not an option. It's not even on the table. It's just not a thing, because if I quit something, it's really just not going to be beneficial to me down the line. I love writing books. If I quit, I don't get to write a book about it, for example. And if I quit, my grandkids don't get to read a story about this cool thing Granddad Sean did once. And so, yeah, the pain and stuff is going to be there. But if I quit, I'm going to land up in a worse position. And I am an athlete, I'm not just this sort of airy fairy philosopher going off and doing these things, trying to find myself and change the world. I'm an athlete, and if you lose as an athlete, that's it. No one's going to look at you. No one remembers who came second on anything, really. He was the second guy to climb Everest. I don't know. Who comes second in the 100-meter sprints nowadays? I don't know. Well, actually, I don't know who comes first now that Usain Bolt's gone either.
Yeah, exactly.
So there's that part of it where just quitting is not an option. But the thing, and I mentioned it earlier, I'm 41 nearly, and I've only just had our second child. So, if you look at, people are having kids later and later, it's likely my kids are going to be 40 when they have kids. So I'll be 80. So it's very unlikely that I'm going to have meaningful conversations with my grandkids once they're old enough, because I'll be gone. So that for me is quite a powerful motivating factor to carry on at the moment, because it means I can write the story down, I can have a book out of it. And I love book format. I think it's the best format of written sort of content. I much prefer it to blogs or to magazine articles. I just love the format of a book. And I love long form anything, actually. In fact, I love podcasts that are like 4 hours long. It's just like brilliant. And I can't believe people let's do it. People who listen to podcasts at double speed, I don't get it. Like,
do they do that?
Oh yeah, it's huge. Like, kids now, they listen to all their work notes and all their things they need to do for schooling in double speed. It's like blah, blah, blah. I'm like, no, I want to just give me a 4-hour podcast and I'll listen to it in half speed if I could. So I just love long form content in general. If I'm going to watch a film in the cinema, I'm like, right, which one's 3 hours long? I'm getting my money's worth on this one. So it's just.
Go on, sorry.
Yeah, I was just going to say, writing these books is a huge motivating factor so that my future grandkids can read them one day.
Yeah. So it sounds to me like you do have a why. There is something you call upon. Everything you've just explained. It's the
Yeah,
I will not
exactly.
quit. Quitting is not an
Yeah,
option.
yeah,
You've got,
exactly.
and all these higher purposes as well.
But
These
it's weird.
stories for
Yeah,
your grandchildren and
yeah,
etc.
exactly. But I don't have to really call on them. They're
Mm.
sort of just ingrained. It's not sort of like, oh, I'm tough. Oh, I need to think about them. It's just quitting's just not an option. Most of the time, if things are going bad, there's 6 elements. There's 6 sort of pistons of endurance, I call them, which is planning, food, water, sleep, muscle management, and motivation. And if things are going bad, I'm not thinking, oh, what do I call upon to go faster? I'm thinking, right, have I eaten properly? Am I hydrated? What are my muscles like? Do I need an ice bath? What was my sleep like last night? Because remember, a lot of the stuff I do is multi-day, right? So I'm like, all right, well, do I need more sleep tonight or less sleep? Am I behind? What's the temperature like? Is my route the best it could be? Could I cut this corner because the tailwinds but there's more elevation? So constantly in my head, I'm just thinking of those 6 pistons, and trying to make them fire, and that's sort of getting me out of it. So yeah, I'm sort of quite practical sometimes in when things are going bad, and also, you know, James Lawrence, an American guy who does Ironmans, he says he never has 2 bad days. I've definitely had 2 bad days, but you certainly don't have sort of like 3 or 4 bad days in a row. Like, it's gonna get better. So I sort of have that blind hope that if today's crap, tomorrow's gonna be not crap, because statistically that's hopefully how it works.
Yeah, bad times never last, but nor do the
Yeah,
good.
exactly. Nor to the good, and
you're
you've got
riding
to
those
remember that
waves.
too. Yeah, yeah.
It's funny you were talking about the 6 pistons. I have it on my notes. I wanted to talk to you about this, but it's almost like when things got tough, you just took it back to the basics and the things that you can control. Those 6 P's that you talk about, the 6 pistons, are all within your control. And it's when you're going back to them, it's like, what can I do? And everything almost goes back to them as well, doesn't it? However you're feeling, whatever you're going through, it is connected to each one of those. I was wondering if you could talk through each of the pistons a bit for the listeners and explain what each one
Yeah.
refers to.
Yeah. So on multi-day world record attempts, you're up against the clock a lot of the time. Not always. On the sort of the longest of something, you're not. You could take your time, but within reason. My world's longest triathlon, I did non-stop for 85 days, 4,200 miles, and people took that seriously. People took that seriously as a genuine athletic achievement. Had I taken 185 days, people would say, "Oh, well, that's a holiday." So there's still an element of just going every day, all day, as fast as you can, even though there might not be a time limit. Now, to do consistent, good daily mileage in whatever, swimming, cycling, running, or whatever, you've got to have these 6 pistons firing on all cylinders. And they are, as I said, planning, food, water, sleep, muscle management, and motivation. So planning is often, a lot of it's done before you even reach the start line. So that's, looking at the terrain, looking at wind directions, looking at temperatures for that time of year, looking at road conditions, trail conditions, whatever it is. And then also, again, on multi-day things, it's, every day you're planning a couple of days ahead for food stops, water stops, where you're going to sleep, that sort of thing. So, you've really got to just be on top of everything when it comes to planning. Then food. Within the food pie chart, you've got energy, recovery, and health. And you've got to really look after all 3 of them. The health one people forget about, and then they don't have their antioxidants and electrolytes and salads that you need. And it's difficult, because why have a bowl of salad that's 100 calories when you can have, a foot long from Subway and it's 1,000 calories, right? So it's so within food, you've just got to really keep on top of what you're eating and what's good for you. For example, and also depends what you're doing. So you can do a high fat diet, which is great for endurance, but if you're running at 150 beats per minute, you're going to be burning 100% carb, pretty much. I mean, some people are sort of anomalies, and they might be burning fat at 150 beats per minute, but it's pretty rare. At 143 beats per minute, I'm burning entirely carbs. because I'm pushing, and that's what my body needs to burn. And people are going to probably shout at me and say, "Oh, actually, you just need to train your body better." And it's true, I probably could. The high fat thing hasn't worked for me. I need a mixture of sort of half fat, half carbs in the energy thing, and then some protein, of course. But if I eat, I know that if I eat more vegetables and less meat, I feel better and I perform better. For example, I'm not vegan or vegetarian, but I'm what I call flexitarian. So 4 nights a week we probably eat only plant-based meals, and then we have a roast on the weekend. But I certainly feel better when I eat plant-based food and fresh food as well. Fresh food is I feel better and stronger and have more energy than sort of processed food. So that's the food. Then water, hydration. I've done salt sweat tests and salt loss tests, and I lose a lot of salt. I lose twice as much salt, more than twice as much salt as most people. I lose 3.4 grams of salt per liter of sweat. Most people lose a gram and a half. So I really need to keep on top of my salt for hydration. Just the way my body works. Yeah, apparently. I've not really looked into it anymore, but there's it's just I just need to have a lot of salt. So I've licked my skin before, on a sweaty run. I'm like, I need more salt. I'm licking my arm, and everyone's like, what are you doing, weirdo? And so keep on top of hydration. How much water do you need? You don't want to carry too much water. Where can I get water? If they're running streams, do I need a filter? Or can I just drink it straight out the stream? It's just really keeping on top of hydration. Food, sleep is the next one on multi-day. Too much sleep and you're too far behind. Too little sleep, you're not recovered enough. And then each day will be different. And then also, where am I going to sleep? I don't want to be going 5 minutes down a side road. It's a waste of my time. So I'm going to try and sleep as close to the road as possible. So for me, it's things like bus stops and drain pipes under the road. That's pretty useful if it's not raining. And just trying to learn your body and learn how much sleep you can survive on. And actually, you can survive on a lot less sleep than you think physically. It's weird, and it's strange to be so sleep deprived, but you're looking at your figures and going, actually, I'm cycling or running at the exact same speed I would when I'm perfectly not asleep. Or not tired. So it's an interesting one. It's just kind of practicing that. And then muscle management. That's, what do you need to do to your muscles to keep them in good form? Do you need ice baths? That's getting in cold rivers, for example. Or once I even, a fisherman was sort of he came into the dock. This was during my triathlon around Britain, and he was sort of throwing the ice overboard. And I just jumped on the opportunity. I was like, whoa. Do you mind if I have some of your ice? He's like, yeah, what do you need it for? I was like, I want an ice bath. And then there was this bucket, which they soak all the nets in on the dock. So I was like, oh, can I just throw the ice in there and jump in there? He's like, if you want, mate. So I was like pulling all this manky fish net out this big blue bucket, big blue like drum. I threw the ice in there, then I jumped in there and had a bit of an ice bath. There's that, and then rolling. Do you take a little rolling pin or a little stick? There's times where I've been, and I have the same thought every time this happens on my cycling challenges when I've camped up in a wood. I only take one set of clothing, so I'm often sleeping naked. But before I sort of get in my sleeping bag, I'm standing stark as naked with a twig from a tree, rubbing it up and down my IT band and on my quad and then on my calves. And I swear every time I think about this, and I actually do a wave. I think someone set up one of those motion detector owl cameras in the woods, or to photograph a fox, and then they get a notification on their phone and they're like, whoa, this is exciting. And then they see some hairy ginger naked bloke rubbing his leg with a stick, and I'm waving just in case there is the camera there.
Someone put a big net over your head and capture you or something like that. We've got him.
Yeah. So so muscle management, just keeping on top of things that are tight and knowing what's going on. And this just comes with experience. And I'm only 41, so I've still got a long way to go in that side of experience side of things. And then motivation, what's motivating you to keep going? What are these metaphorical carrots in front of you that are going to keep you from quitting? I mentioned them to me, like, if quitting's not on the table, you don't think about it. Making your kids proud, making your future grandkids proud, that's super important for me. Raising money for charity, raising awareness for a specific project, whatever it is, keep those in the forefront of your mind. Listening to podcasts, listening to audiobooks, that helps with your mindset as well and your motivation. That really, I almost entirely now listen to podcasts and audiobooks. I used to only listen to music, and now I hardly ever listen to music now. So those are the six pistons, and it's hard, to get them all firing. Every day one or two is going to be misfiring, and then you're going to be down on distance. But that's just the world of endurance sport, really, and you just got to kind of make hay when the sun shines.
That's the balancing act, isn't it?
Yeah.
It's funny you were talking about ice baths. I've recently just bought myself a huge barrel.
That's on my dear Santa list.
Oh,
it's my birthday in April, so I think I'm going to get one.
Got that off my daughter for my birthday recently. So it's a little rubber duck with a thermometer on it, so I can put it in there. But like, do you do ice baths? Is this something you believe in, and what sort of benefits?
Yeah. I had one. I just got a wheelie bin, just the brown wheelie bin. I've got.
I saw on your Insta. It looked freezing.
Yeah, I did one tonight actually. They're good. You can only go up to your waist, and they're too narrow to even bend down. And they're a real mission to get out of, like, because they're so narrow. You've got to like get your legs up your chest, and because you don't want it toppling over. So that's an issue. So it's not ideal. But yeah, I think I'm going to get about. Do you have the big sort of 500-liter one?
I was very lucky actually. A friend of mine, Ollie Smith. You might have heard of him. He runs run. Oh, I'm going to get it wrong. Run the Dare to Run. I don't know if you've heard about it in South Wales.
I know that. Yeah.
Okay. He probably follows you. You probably follow him on Instagram. But he's got one. He's always getting in one on Instagram, and he's inspired me. So I messaged him. I said, "Where can I get myself a barrel?" And it just coincidence, his friend was selling one at the exact same moment. So I bought it straight away. I love it. It's such a weird experience.
Was it watertight straight away? Because I've read online that some of them you buy are not watertight straight away, but you just leave water in it for a while, right?
Well, that's it. It was because I think it was being used.
Oh, okay.
So I think that's what happens, isn't it? The wood absorbs the water and then it expands.
Exactly. Because I see a lot of people go, "Oh, I bought one, they're not watertight." I'm thinking, well, you just need to leave water in it for longer.
Just keep topping it up. But it's such an odd experience, isn't it? Because it's severe pain. That's what I get from it. That rises and rises and rises, and you've got to be able to see it through until it doesn't rise anymore. It just like it hits its threshold, doesn't it? It doesn't get any more painful, and that's when I found usually about a minute I think it takes to get to that. And I suppose that's the danger minute. Within that minute, your mind's telling you it's just going to get worse and worse and worse, and you want to hop out. But if you see it out, you're able to manage it. And then when I hop it out, after a couple of minutes, I'm only up to like 3 minutes at the moment. I want to get to 5 or more. After a couple of minutes, you want to go back in. It's weird.
Yeah, it's true. No, I'm a big fan. I don't have anything where I can go up to my neck yet. So yeah, it's I want to get those barrels. The barrel's definitely on my birthday's in April, so I'm gonna get
it on the wish list
and get me one of those. But or I might make a bath. So I'm really into woodworking. So I've actually already designed a sort of a shallow, just wooden bath trough, I guess it would be, which I could just do. The other tip I have is chlorine tablets, by the way, just so that algae doesn't build up. So you can just throw a little chlorine tablet in, and I threw one chlorine tablet in my bath 6 months ago, and it's still clear.
Really?
Yeah.
Because at the moment I'm changing it every 2 weeks.
Yeah, no, I mean, you could if you wanted to, because it's going to get salty and sweaty. But a bit of chlorine in there, you'll be good, man.
I'll have a look at that. Yeah. What sort of benefits do you get from it physically then? Do you find it reduces the swelling and the inflammation?
Yeah, definitely. Especially for the legs. I'm doing a lot of running now with hill reps, and I feel I feel, and it might be placebo, but I really feel there's less pain in my legs after I have a bit of an ice soak.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, I mean, I don't know the actual what's happening biologically or when you go in a bath, but I think what it does is just squeezes things out and makes things shrink. So if there's any inflammation, it'll shrink it down, and then when you get back out, your body's like, oh, I need to send blood there, and it sends blood there, and that helps
I think
with
it's something like
recovery as
that.
well. So that's
It's
what I've been told, but it feels
it,
good anyway.
yeah, it certainly makes things shrink. That's for sure.
Yeah.
Um, on your website, I I really like this section, by the way. You don't see this on many athletes' pages at all, if any. But you not only had your successes listed, you had hiccups,
Yeah.
and I thought that was really important. I think people need to see that, and especially in boxing, they say the tale of a true champion is it's not how many he's won, it's what he does when he gets knocked down, what he does when he loses. And I like that section about the hiccups. It was sort of like, yes, this went wrong, this is what I learned from it, and this is sort of how I adapted. I was wondering, what's been the biggest hiccup for you, or the most memorable?
Nah.
What's been like the hardest test? What did you learn from it, and how did you adapt?
I think failing as this wannabe National Geographic photographer, it was probably the biggest lesson I learned in life, to sort of have dreams and goals, but you really need to sort of put things in place to make them happen. And I sort of didn't really do that in photography, and it took me ages to work out that yes, I'd had all these dreams to be this National Geographic photographer, but I didn't really fight for it. I didn't fight. I didn't, and you need to fight for something you want. And I just sort of thought, well, if I'm a good photographer, people will notice me and it'll just happen. And that kind of that just doesn't work. You really got to put yourself out there. You've got to try hard. You've got to just hustle. You're hustling for it. And I just didn't do that. And I think what I took from that into the endurance world is, yes, you can be a really good cyclist or runner, but it's not going to be enough. You need to learn about wild camping, and you need to learn about buying the right food quickly. You're running into a supermarket and you've got like 4 minutes to buy 2,000 calories. Go. And you need to know what to buy, and it needs to not sit in your stomach too heavy, and you need to be able to carry it. And, so there's all these things that you just got to do. And they're not just going to come to you. You need to go out there and find records you want to break or beat, or races you want to compete in. When you get to the sort of level of where I want to be, and breaking these big scary world records. So I think that's the biggest hiccup that's taught me a lesson, is just it's not going to just come to you. You've got to fight for it, and you've got to be hungry, and you've got to chase it, and be relentless, because if you're not, someone else will.
Yeah, I think that's a big lesson for everyone really to take from, is that the world doesn't owe you anything. It owes you nothing. And I think there's quite a lot of people, in sort of self-entitled people nowadays, that expect everything from the world. But unless you go after it, unless you make actions to go towards something, you'll never do it. Do you hear somebody? You must hear people all the time say, "Oh, I wish I could run a marathon," or "Oh, one day I'll run a marathon." And it's like, well, you can.
Yeah.
you can. You've just got to action it. You've got to do it. It's really
Yeah.
important, that one. It's a good, really important lesson.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, the people say, "Oh, I wish I could run a marathon," probably don't really want to run one. They're just saying it to, in front of you, and it might be at the back of their mind, but they're probably not really actually serious about it. But yeah, I mean, the self-entitlement thing, it's difficult now, because it's quite easy to go online and just see the highlights of people's lives. And it's not people's fault. It's just that's how the social media algorithms work. They show people the good stuff because that's getting more likes. So obviously, and that tends to be what happens, right? Whereas I think most people are quite honest now, I think, on social media, but I think the algorithms mean you don't see it unless you do what you've done for this podcast and actually gone into my Instagram feed and scrolled through everything and looked at the highs and the lows and what's gone wrong and gone to my website. But if you just sort of had to skim through my life, you'd probably think, oh my, this guy's superhuman. He's got such a good life. He's not, it's all there, which is why I put the hiccups on the website, as you say, because I wanted to show people that I'm not anything special. I don't have millions of pounds in the bank. I was hungry for it and I wanted it and I trained hard, and some stuff worked out and quite a lot didn't work out actually as well. But that didn't stop me sort of carrying on. And I'm not a freak of nature, because what I found is, and this is quite common with a lot of athletes are the best because they are outliers. So there's something in them biologically or physically that makes them the best. And it's just luck of draw. It's just a bit of genetics. Usain Bolt, he's good because his height with his body weight, with his muscle density and his muscle makeup makes him the fastest man in the world. I am 5'7", 7.5. There's biologically, I pretty much have zero chance of being the fastest man in the world. I'm too short. My muscle makeup is wrong. XYZ, right? So there's elements. Sumo wrestlers, biologically, it's unlikely I could be a sumo wrestler. It's unlikely I could be a basketball player, because biologically I'm just not one of those outliers. And I think a lot of people thought I was good at doing these ultra endurance things because I also had this biological advantage that they didn't have. So I actually went and got tested. I went to a lab in London and they did all these various tests for me. And it was quite disappointing, actually, because secretly, when I was getting tested, I was like, they're going to find something amazing about me and I'm going to be written about in the history books for eternity about this one amazing gene that I have. Anyway, I went for my results and the guy looked at my paper and he was also disappointed because he thought maybe we'll find something. And he's like, oh, mate, you are Joe Blogs. In fact, you have the salt deficiency, which makes hydration a lot harder for you. So good luck with that.
But a fantastic beard.
Yeah, exactly.
That's one of the best on the planet, surely.
Gives me superpowers. But so it was important for me to show people that I'm not an outlier. And the reason I'm good at what I do is there's a little bit of genetics luck. I'm on a good day 68 kgs and I'm 5'7" and a bit. So weight wise and height wise is quite good for endurance sport. I have a body type that doesn't store a lot of fat, so I can keep a good weight to get up hills. I recover quite quickly, and I don't know if the rest of the world recovers as quickly as I do, but I seem to sort of bounce back from injuries and sort of really big training days quite quickly. So there is a little bit of an advantage, but there's a lot of people who would be able to do what I do if they just trained as hard. Which I probably shouldn't be telling people, because there's probably loads of people going like, "Oh, I can beat Sean now," which is true.
Well, have you heard that saying before that people don't pick their sports pick them? And I think when you're talking about sort of the world ends, the elite classes, that is where the genetics are really going to be prominent. That you're going to see the different, because that they've risen to the top because they put the hard work in, they're naturally talented, and they've got the genetics. Yeah. But I suppose below that, the pool, then it comes down to who's going to put the most work in, I suppose. Yeah. And that's what I love about the ultra world, man. It's you get tall people, short people, wide people. You get them all. It's almost like rugby. You must watch rugby, South African and Wales, and now living in Wales.
Yeah.
There's a position for everyone, no matter your size.
Yeah, exactly.
That's what I love about ultra runners and stuff like that. So there is no one type of ultra runner.
Exactly. Yeah, exactly. It's so true. So I'm probably not one of them yet. I'm trying to be a proper ultra runner, but yeah, it's taking its time.
Do you enter races then? Like, because I know that you do your own personal challenges, but are you regularly into races?
I'm starting to. Yeah, I did a 50K, the Peak Skyline this year, and that was a good learning experience. I came in middle of the pack, pretty much bang in the middle. Mm-hmm. And I'd like to do more. I think when I get a bit older, I think the single day races will appeal to me. I think I'll get a lot of fulfillment out of them.
Yeah.
I'm not quite where I want to be in running yet. I only really started running in my mid-30s, and then only really upped the game at the beginning of last year. So it's just been only a year now that I've been running, mainly running. I've not cycled at all, really, and definitely not swum. But yeah, so I'm not where I want to be in running, and I think give me another 2 years, I think, and I'll be somewhere near where I feel I want to be in running. So yeah, it's a nice journey. I'm not going to rush it this time. I need to put the foundation in, get everything right, and get to a level where I can, start doing big runs. For example, I've never done a 100-miler. For example, I'd love to be able to do a 100-miler.
Oh, really? Out
Yeah.
of everything?
Yeah, at the moment, yeah, it's within my running dreams and goals. That's sort of the next step for me. I'd like to do more than that, but again, I'd like to be able to enter the spine and competitively. I don't think I've dreamed of winning it. I don't think I've got enough in the legs. I probably left it a bit too late, but you never know. There might be a year where Damien doesn't do it. Although this year the top 3 pulled out, didn't they? So whoever was coming, in the spine, I believe 1, 2, and 3 all pulled out. So the person who was in 4th won.
Yeah, you probably didn't even realize. Is that
strategy? Yeah,
oh, brilliant!
exactly. Yeah. He just paced it well,
What's been your most standout moment then? Your most meaningful achievement?
Probably swimming length of Britain, because that was the one that got me sort of, it opened so many doors for me and allowed me to, for example, get a book deal. and it gave me the excuse to get into writing, because I'd written 2 books before that, but hadn't published them. So they were just sat on my laptop. And sort of when I got a publishing deal for the swim, that really gave me the confidence to carry on writing. And I'm so glad it did. And it opened up doors for public speaking, which I love. And it opened up doors for other projects. And the most important thing is it just gave me the confidence that this ultra endurance thing that I knew I was kind of good at, but I just hadn't quite achieved anything in it yet. I knew that I was now able to do it, and I was good at it. And then, it kind of set me up, really, because a lot of stuff came to me after that swim, which I just never would have dreamt that would have come to me, like these book deals and whatnot, and excuse me, other opportunities. So it was, it's probably the thing. I'm going to be sitting in the old age home when I'm 95 going, do you know, I was once the first person to swim the length of Britain. And everyone will be going, yes, shut up, Sean. You told us 5 minutes ago.
Would you do it again?
No.
Like, if in fact, which challenge would you love to do again?
None.
And which challenge would you never do again?
No, I won't do any of them again.
Never again?
Nope. The closest thing I would do is a long bike ride with my kids one day and my wife. Like maybe when they've left school, they wouldn't want to do it with me, but like proper long, like to Australia to watch the World Cup or something. So yeah, that's, I think, a long bike ride with my kids would be fun. But no, none of them. No, don't want to do any of them again.
Done, dusted, move
on.
No,
they're hard, they're tough, and I've ticked that box. I don't know how Olympians go back and try and win gold again. If you've won gold already, I don't know what you're going to get from winning gold again. I take my hat off to them, because it's like, the only way I can explain it is it must be like writing a really long email, and then you're just about to hit send and your computer dies, and you're like, oh no, got to write that email all over again.
Yeah.
And that's what I feel like going and training for the Olympics again is. Except maybe if you win gold, your email does send and you win some money. I don't know, but you get a gold medal. But No, hats off to Olympians. They're just a whole nother level of dedication.
Yeah,
So
well, you're quite right, because obviously we were talking about whys earlier, right? You know, you have to have this deep intrinsic motivation to put the training in, the effort, and push your body to the limits.
yeah,
When you've won gold,
yeah,
well, what's your motivation
no,
to
exactly.
do it all over again? You've
No, I
won the
know.
gold. You are the
Yeah,
best. So indeed, hats off to them. Indeed, unless the motivation
absolutely.
has become
Yeah.
two-time gold winning
Well,
champion. I don't know.
yeah, but that's just greedy. Let someone else
Yeah,
have it.
let someone else have a go.
Yeah, I mean, I've won gold. I'm retiring. Job done.
I was wondering now, what is your understanding of sort of mental resilience? So we'll get onto the mindset stuff. And how important of a role do you feel it plays on you and your challenges?
um, yeah, resilience is it only comes with experience, really. I think mental resilience comes with experience something difficult, and then when it happens again, you realize you didn't die and you survived and you were able to go through it. And you just got to actively try and do miserable things, be cold, wet, miserable, hungry, and tired, and then you realize, oh, actually, the next time that happens, it's not as bad. um, and it's important to also, with resilience, I think, have a certain level of level-headedness. And we touched on it earlier. When things are bad, they might not be bad tomorrow, so keep going. And when things are good, don't take your foot off the gas, because they might not be good tomorrow either. So it's sort of just keeping this level-headedness about where you are and what potentially might go wrong.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that's just in general a good life skill, or a life thing, for not just for sport but for anything, really.
Yeah, it's almost, I've thought about this quite a bit myself, because I don't see mental resilience as, like they call it, mental strength. I don't see it as a strength. I see it as more, it's mechanisms that you can put in place in order to overcome certain obstacles. And you're quite right, with experience, I think knowledge plays a big part. The more you know about something, it takes the sting out of what you're experiencing. So doing things once, you're going to know the second time around that it's not so bad. How much do you feel that it's um, taking on these endurance challenges and increasing your resilience through these endurance challenges carries forward into your regular life and even parenthood?
Oh, undoubtedly, yeah. I mean, of course, you can take your experiences on the mountains when it's freezing cold, excuse me, and transfer it to the rest of your life. The downside, for me anyway, is I've survived some pretty terrible situations, like being chased by tornadoes in America, having gangsters follow me, in South America, being battered in the face by massive hailstones and trying to look through my eyes so I don't go blind in Scotland. So I've had all these terrible things happen to me, and I've managed to come out the other end. So now, unfortunately, I can be a bit sort of careless on some things, because I survived then. So I'm like, well, if I survive then, running up Trafan is going to be fine. So you need to not be blasé about it. So that's the one caveat I would throw in there, saying, yes, you may have survived. And you hear it all the time, people who climb Everest and everything, they'll end up dying doing something stupid, outside their back garden, because they just take their eye off the ball, and they have this sort of, and I'm to blame as well. I was like, oh, I've done this and I've done that. Oh, look at me, beat my chest. Certainly in the early days, I'll easily be able to, run a double marathon. And actually, you can't. You got to take each challenge with its sort of, give it its due respect, really.
Mm-hmm.
But then, yeah, the plus side is I now sort of have this belief that I can, hopefully, whatever I put my mind to I can do it. And some, it doesn't always work out. Yeah, there are failures, of course, but at least I tried and I gave it everything, and I sort of gave it a go rather than going, well, I'm never going to be able to do that. I'm not even going to start. And it's a nice place to be, as long as, I keep my head on and I keep level-headed and don't be too blasé about it.
Well, as a new father, you'll probably get this. Now, I don't know if you ever watched the SAS program on Channel 4 with Ant Middleton and stuff.
No.
They're obviously testing civilians, putting them through the paces of SAS selection. And I've always thought, like, stuff that, just let them deal with a crying child throughout the night. That'll separate the wheat from the chaff. That'll show who's the toughest.
Yeah. Tell me about it. My 2.5-year-old still doesn't sleep through the night. It's soul destroying.
Yeah, it can be. Yeah, no, definitely. What time are you waking up? We were half fivers for a while, for a fair few months.
Oh, I'll deal with 5:30 any day of the week. He's often up from 1 until 5. Yeah.
Oh wow.
Yeah. So he goes to bed at 7:30, 8.
Yeah.
And he'll wake up at 1 and think it's morning, and he just doesn't understand. Especially now in winter, because it's dark in the morning anyway. So yeah, he's just like, I'm up now. So yeah, from like 1 till 5. Yeah.
And that's a breaker. That's a ball breaker.
Yeah. I mean, we had a good 6 months where that would happen 2 or 3 times a week. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. I think it might happen tonight because he's a bit sick and he didn't have his daytime nap. And that seems, if he skips his daytime nap because he's just not up for sleeping. And maybe it's me. Like, maybe I was a bit hyper as a kid and I think maybe he's got that bit from me. He's always just wanting to do stuff. He's got FOMO. I think when he goes to sleep, he's missing out on something cool.
Yeah.
So yeah. Anyway, I think tonight's going to be one of those ones where he's up. So
yeah,
anyway,
you can tell, can't you? When they miss that nap, you got a feeling.
Yeah, I know. But luckily, I mean, Caroline and I were both self-employed and we both work from home. So we, if I have a bad night, she can sort of tap in, and it's not like either of us have to get off and go to work for 8 a.m. So we are lucky we can give each other a bit of a lie-in if one of us needs it. So
yeah.
I was up at 6 this morning to go for my training run in Snowdonia. And Caroline had a bad sleep, so I'm on duty tonight.
It's your turn. You got to take it in turns. You got to take it in
turns. Yeah.
I was wondering, like, so you're obviously this incredible ultra endurance athlete, obviously very mentally resilient and physically resilient. What stresses you out? And then maybe other than adventure and running and training, how do you unwind and de-stress?
What stresses me out? If you can believe Caroline, nothing stresses me out, and that stresses her out. She's like, "You should be annoyed by this." And I'm like, "Really? Oh, okay."
Yeah.
Being late, that stresses me out. People who are late, which is maybe why I like to break records, because if I don't break the record, it means I'm late. Yeah. If I have something to do, it stresses me out if I can't do it now. I'm not a procrastinator. I'm whatever the opposite of procrastination is, I'm that, which in itself is annoying because, I'm trying to think of an example. I'll be halfway through dinner and realize I haven't, trimmed a bit of the hedge I was meant to trim today. So I'll literally get up, run and get the clippers, go just clip that, trim that bit of the hedge, and then come back. And Caroline's like, "What are you doing?" I'm like, I just it's this terrier thing in me where I just have to do it. And if I don't do it, I'm not quite that bad. I mean, I did that once because dinner was done anyway. And
so that's a real story.
Oh yeah, genuinely. Yeah. We were sitting in the garden anyway, and whatever.
Yeah.
And she just puts me. She's like, "Sean, can it wait?" And I'm like, "Yeah." She's like, "Then just chill out. Just have your dinner." So yeah, if I've got something to do, I just have to do it now, and that can be annoying for other people. Which is why I like to do solo stuff, because I people would get really annoyed with me because I'm just quite particular about from waking up to being on the bike or on my feet is like 14 minutes. Like that's it, and it's got to be done, and it can't be any other way. And yeah, that's not fun for a lot of people. So that's kind of it really. What was the other question? You
And
had
then,
another one.
other than running and fitness,
Oh, how
yeah,
do I
how do you
unwind?
unwind? And yeah,
Yeah,
what do you
I've
like to
got my
do?
hobbies. Yeah, tons of hobbies. At the moment, I'm doing my old camper van up, so that really is like meditation for me because I'm problem solving. I'm doing all the inside, and I've got wooden floors and building a bench seat and learning. I'm learning new skills. So I'm learning how to upholster the seats myself, and trying to just work out what to do. And yeah, that's for me my meditation. Knife making. I haven't made a knife in ages, but I really enjoyed the process of knife making. I used to draw and paint. I haven't done that in years as well. I miss that, and I will get into it again. But yeah, I've got to do stuff with my hands, and I've got to have little mini projects on the go, and
Mhm.
that for me is de-stressing. Mowing the lawn, love it. My gardening, I've got a little vegetable patch. That's how I de-stress. And yeah, that's pretty much it, really.
It's fulfilling as well. You get something at the end. You've made something. You've achieved something. So not only you
Yeah,
go,
well, yeah, I guess
yeah,
so. But strangely, I'm less excited about the result as the process. I remember when I was into painting, I loved painting, and I'd finish the painting and I'd throw it in the attic. Genuinely, I was like, well, I'm done with it now. So for me, I really enjoy the sort of meditative process of applying myself and making stuff and doing stuff with it. Create bit of creativity in there, bit of hard work, bit of thought process, bit of building stuff, making stuff, fixing stuff.
Mhm.
Um, and except my vegetables, I quite enjoy the end process of growing vegetables, of
You
course.
don't chuck them up in
But
the loft then.
yeah, no, I don't throw them in the
No.
loft. But yeah, I think that for me is it's important. It's important, and every now and then, it's we do watch a few documentaries and films. We enjoy watching a film, but with young kids, it's impossible to have 2 hours to sit down and watch a film. So that hasn't happened in a while. But Caroline's pretty good at making me sort of just kind of sit down, Sean, just chill. Yeah, have a whiskey, have a glass of wine. And it is good for me, I have to say. I'm not
Yeah.
sort of these, I'm not going to poo-poo sitting down in front of the telly for half an hour and just de-stressing. I think that's important. Um, but that seems to be my limit, really, half an hour to an hour. And then that's too much after that. And yeah, it's every other day, maybe.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. No, it always sounds like she balances you out, and a healthy
Yeah,
balance
yeah,
as
yeah,
well.
exactly.
So if people are listening to this and they are inspired and they want to go out and do something epic, achieve something grandiose, is that the word?
Yeah.
How do they do it, Sean?
Baby
What, like,
steps.
baby steps?
Yeah. You know, it's quite easy to, for example, go onto my website and look at all the stuff I've done and look at all the stuff loads of other people have done and go like, I want to do that now. But you've just take the baby steps. Do it for fun initially. I did this thing called the 496 challenge, which is if you run 1 kilometer on the first of the month, second 2 kilometers on the second, three on the third, and the month has 31 days, you'll do 496 kilometers in that month. So a lot of people are doing it now this January, and it's become this little club. You can get a medal if you complete the challenge. Yeah, it's really good. It's such a great challenge because it's incremental. You're doing 1K, then 2K, 3K, 4. Like you can do that, and then all of a sudden you're running 25K, 26K, 27K, 28K, which is that's you're doing half marathons a day by the end for the last week, and which is you'd be surprised how all of a sudden you're enjoying it because you've taken these baby steps. And I think we all and I'm just as bad as everyone else, to be honest, going, I want to do this, I'm just going to go out and smash it, and then you just get injured or you're not as good as you hoped you would be, so you lose motivation. So it's important, I think, to have a goal, write it down. My whole office here is a blackboard, so I could write on the ceiling, on the wall. I've painted the whole thing in blackboard paint, and I'm quite visual, so I write things all over my office here, and I think it's important. But yeah, just take baby steps. Do it for fun at the beginning, and you'll naturally get better. And then once you start getting to a point where you want to get serious, then you can start looking at those six pistons and being quite thoughtful on everything. But at the beginning, just go and do it for fun,
Well, what would you say to people that perhaps don't believe that they could ever achieve anything like that?
Well, I mean, everyone, it's just stupid, it's I think most people are probably, well, no, I disagree actually. If you don't think you can do it, it's probably because you've not met anyone who's done it or not looked into the practicality of doing it. So, for example, people who cycle around the world, I always thought were just other people, part of a certain corner of society that I wasn't part of. But what I didn't do is just actually practically sit down, do some research, write a list, and then all of a sudden it was like, well, actually, it's really not as expensive as you think it is. Al Humphreys spent 4.5 years cycling around the world and 7 grand. Um, you can get quite fit on a bicycle. Having a British passport means you can pretty much travel anywhere in the world. Yeah, you skip some countries that are politically difficult at the moment. That's doable. You can cycle around them and that sort of thing. So actually, there was no real reasoning for my thinking that cycling around the world was only for a few elite, because it could be for anyone. You just really need to look into it and just sit down and do your research. Just go and do your research. Like when I swam the length of Britain, everyone's like, well, I thought, well, actually, everyone did say that one was impossible, to be fair. But even I kind of was like, is it possible? But then when I did my research, I realized actually it's totally doable. It's just going to take a long time and be miserable, which it was. But yeah, it's if people think they can't do something, I would urge you just to research it a bit more. Just look into the practicalities of, you say you can't run a marathon. Why can't you run a marathon? Because actually most people can walk a marathon in about 7 hours, which is within the cutoff time. So what's stopping you? Are you getting injured? Okay, why are you getting injured? Go and get that looked at. So yeah, I think that would be my first thought is why don't you think you can do it? And then go and do some research and realize actually you probably can. You just need to change your thought patterns a little bit.
I suppose that's the thing. If they're looking at this huge challenge, it can be quite overwhelming, intimidating. They'll self-limiting beliefs. I can't do that. But then, as you're saying, you go and do your research. You break it down into these manageable chunks, and that will give them the confidence to actually go out there and realize they can do it, I guess.
Yeah, exactly. Baby steps. Start small.
So, what does the future hold for Sean? What's on the horizon, or is it all hush hush? Or can you give any clues at all?
Yeah, no clues, unfortunately. Too big. It's quite scary, actually. Yeah, 2 big projects I'm training for. One has been delayed since 2019, pretty much the end of 2019.
Oh, so quite a while.
Yeah, so that COVID has stopped that one really, and I'm really not sure when I'll ever do that one. But there's another one that's hopefully going to happen this year. It's just there's quite a lot of logistics involved with this one, so I'm hoping I can pull it off from a logistical point of view, and from a fitness point of view. It's quite tough. It's very tough. It'd be the hardest thing I've ever, and probably will ever do from just hard. It's just hard.
What is hard? Yeah. What is hard? Is it physically hard, mentally hard?
Yeah, everything. Physically, mentally, logistically, time cutoffs. There's a speed element to it. So yeah, and it's long. It's long as well.
Yeah, so. Are we talking weeks, months?
No, months.
Years?
Yeah,
months.
Yeah, so no. Yeah, I don't think I could do years without getting divorced. So, yeah. So there's a lot. This one that's I'm up against, but at the moment, I believe in my physical ability to achieve it. My physical potential. I'm not there yet, nowhere near, but I believe in my potential. But I can be at my potential. But if the logistics don't work out, then I'm screwed. So really, it's a very big project, this one.
When are you likely to announce?
When I can guarantee that the logistics are going to be sweet. So once I know that it's doable from a logistics point of view, then I'll probably slowly announce it nearer the time, but sort of call it June.
Okay,
May, June
cool.
time. Watch this space. So if it happens again, the logistics may not be in my favor, and in which case it just won't happen. So, but I'm hopeful.
If people want to hear about the challenge, where can they find you? Where can they follow you? What's your Insta handles?
I guess
websites?
Instagram. Yeah, just search me on the internet.
Yeah.
I think. I believe there's only one Sean Conway with a big ginger beard, so I'm not hard to find. But I think Instagram is probably the one I use the most. It's the most fun because I'm quite visual. I really enjoy photography still now. So yeah, that's the one really.
And that's at Sean Conway, all one word, isn't it?
At Sean Conway Adventure, I think it is. Yeah.
Oh, it is long. Well, I can't see it.
Sean
As you
Conway
say, if they search for you, they'll find you.
Yeah,
and
be there.
You said you got several books out as well. Is there any if any book they should go out and buy? Which book should it be?
Well, I've got 3 cycling books, a running book, swimming book, and then a kids novel. So it depends what you're into, really. If you're into cycling, the Round the World cycling book is probably the one that people buy the most. I've only got 1 swimming book and 1 running book, and they're all pretty good, actually. I have to say I'm pretty proud of them. I wouldn't publish them if they were crap, because I don't see the point of having a crap book out there for the sake of it. If they were crap, I would just print it out and leave it on my shelf here for my grandkids to read. But yeah, I'm very lucky that people really like reading my books, so I'm going to keep writing them. I've got another 6 in my to-do list. So
another 6.
Yeah, I know. I've just not got around to it yet. It's coming. Like a couple of them are sort of looking back at my childhood. I've got 3 books, which might just be 1 book, to be fair. But the 3 decades up till 30 when I sold the business, so sort of my African upbringing, my school years, and then my 10 years in London. So those are going to hopefully. Wow, I've written the beginning of all of them. I've written the first few chapters, and then I sort of shelve them and get to there when I need to get to there. I need to do the sequel. I've got a sequel for my kids' book, which I'm trying to write, but just running out of time because I'm spending my days running up Triffin.
Yeah. These insane challenges, they too tend to get in the way. That's the problem.
Yeah. So watch this space. My dream is to have 50 books out by the time I die. I think that would be cool. I've got 7 now, so I'm a bit behind because I haven't written one for a couple of years. So normally I sort of did 1 a year, which really enjoyed doing that. So I've got some catching up to do. So yeah, watch your space.
Keep chipping away.
Yeah.
Sean, thank you very much for your time. Really enjoyed that.
Thank you so much. Yeah, mate. That was great. Yeah, thanks for having me on. Yeah, it's been great.
No worries. And we will keep an eye on your socials, and we look forward to you announcing those 2 mega challenges this year. Hopefully. Yeah. Fingers crossed. Fingers crossed.
Fingers crossed. And watch your space. If you'll follow me on Strava, you'll see me, dying. You'll see how slow I am, and you'll be like, he's not up for it.
Yeah, seeing the beacon going off, is it?
Yeah, exactly.
Sending the chopper. Thank you very much, Sean, and we will catch up soon.
Nice one, mate. Catch you later. Cheers.